welcome back. Week 1, Lecture 2. In Lecture 1, we've spoken about the what is the business environment. Today, we're going to be looking into the 4 5 different characteristics that define what is the business environment. There are many more than 4 5, but we're going to be focusing on the key ones that are for our understanding in this particular unit of the nature of the business environment. One and the most important one is complexity of the business environment. There are many factors, events, and occurrences that take place in industry, and those events are having a massive impact on our day-to-day operation. So you can't isolate one concept from another, and in order to predict what are the possible implications of those environmental changes. It's more in the sense that one lead to another, and basically management team has to find a way of dealing with those changes. Not only that they have to find a way of dealing with those changes are different for each and every industry. So there is no kind of standardized approach in dealing with the complex nature of macro environment changes. So, for example, certain political force can have a massive impact on hospitality industry and the players within, but no impact whatsoever on, for example, higher education industry. Now, what we also do know that all the factors of the business environment, like economic or socio-cultural one, are interdependent. In other words, changes within one of those factors will have some marginal impact on other macro environment changes, and them together will create that more dominant change within the industry itself. So, for example, some businesses or within the industry might depend on the government grants providing them with the ability to deal with that particular industry. In many cases, today, particularly more than ever, we have interdependence of the global or dependence onto the global market and the players within the same one. So a lot of businesses today outsource their operations from overseas. Then they don't solely depend on that particular foreign country, but more than all the other ones that are part of that distribution chain that they are engaged at that point in time. Just to add to it, for example, changes in currency, and we've seen in recent times that fluctuation plays an important role in economic waters of the business environment, and how organizations are finding the best way to utilize those changes. The other thing is also that business environment today is probably more dynamic than ever before. We've seen changes taking place, for example, in communication industry in a very rapid pace. For the last 15 years, technology has evolved a great deal, and we've seen that the communication, like for example, the one we're doing right now, was something that the higher education players or industry was not even contemplating some 15, 20 years ago. Now, consumer preferences do change very, very rapidly, and there are the markets around the globe, for example, Japanese market, that is commonly used as the test ground for a lot of international companies to see the acceptance of willingness of the market to accept new product innovations and the innovations that are taking place within a specific industry. On top of that, we also have to add the ever emerging implications of foreign competitors that are coming down to our market and in the industry, and also taking in consideration that very often, more than ever, we see competitors introducing a new type of services and goods that are causing what we often refer to some form of disruption. We're going to talk about disruption in week two into a lot more details. We also have to understand that the business environment is uncertain and it's very difficult to predict what a future holds for the organization and, of course, the industry at large. Next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the forecasting and importance of the forecasting in business decision making. Now, business environment is also a relative. It's a relative from city to city, from region to region, from state to state, and within a business environment, the global business environment. So it's very hard to assume certain things will overspill or work the same in the different parts of, for example, just simply Australia. In my hospitality industry, and talking to the people within my industry, we came to notice that, for example, political changes took place in Victoria in 2020 were prohibiting us from serving face-to-face customers in our venues. Therefore, we had to rely on our business partners, such as Menulog, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, DoorDash, to serve our customers in Victoria. On the other hand, where there was no COVID cases recorded, like such as Western Australia and Queensland, businesses in hospitality industry were actually able to serve the customers face to face. Of course, that itself leads to greater customer loyalty and, of course, repeat purchases and visits to the venues. We also have to understand that within a business environment, there are some specific forces, and then there are also some general forces taking place. Going back to hospitality industry, just previously explained, we've seen in Australia, for example, that the government has launched a number of policies over the course of 2020 that were specifically designed for hospitality industry, mainly one not being able to serve customer face to face and opting to use our business partners such as Menulog, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, and DoorDash to deliver our produce to our customers. But on the other hand, we've seen that over the course of 2020, due to the low business activity overall in Australia, that the Reserve Bank of Australia has dropped the interest rates to historically low, which was subsequently passed by all banking institutions. So, with the first example, we've seen that the government has launched a specific policy, specific force targeting the hospitality venues. But on the other hand, drop in interest rate was actually felt all across the Australian economy, and all industries had a benefit of the historically low interest rates. At the same time, understanding these macro environment changes, these uncontrollable changes, brings the aspect of forecasting and importance of the forecasting in order to deal with these macro changes. Understanding how they might change in the future, what are the possible implications, generates an enormous benefit for the organization in order to prepare themselves to deal with those macro environment forces. Now, on the other hand, it raises the question, what are we going to be forecasting? What are the things that are important for our organization? How long are we going to go into the future and try to predict the possible changes that will take place? Keep in mind that the forecasting itself, it's a very expensive activity and it's a very expensive exercise, where also the time frame plays extremely important parts of the relevance of the information gathered and presented to the organization. So forecasting does provide the kind of an idea of how organization could and should look into the dealing with those changes into the future. But nevertheless, at the same time, further we go into the future to forecast the possible changes, less of the certainty we have with the data collected from that forecasting activity. All right, guys. With that in mind, we conclude on some of the characteristics of the business environment. Now we're going to look into some external and internal aspects of the business environment. Till next video, take care, stay safe.